Good evening. Our top story this week. A California judge rules that smoking medical marijuana is not a good reason to take a child away. The U.S. Supreme Court decides to hear an international child custody case regarding an American soldier who could not stop his ex from taking off with their daughter to Scotland. In Colorado, the child protective industry wants to recruit more foster parents so that they don't have to move stolen children halfway across the state. And Colorado also wants to start tracking their child snatchers' caseloads so that they can't use the excuse of being overwhelmed when failing children anymore. A report into the Nebraska child welfare privatization fiasco that took place over the last couple years says that the state went too fast, causing the private foster care agencies to focus on their own survival instead of helping the kids. In Florida, after years of dumping sick and disabled children into nursing homes designed for the elderly, child welfare officials draft a policy aimed at stopping the practice, although one administrator denies that it ever happened. In New York, a social service agency is forced to move due to asbestos in the building. In South Carolina, an audit of Child Protective Services is approved in an effort to address safety concerns. In Tennessee, the child protective industry is withholding the files on the 31 kids who died in the state during the first 6 months of this year. And in California, foster kids are still getting thrown out on their butts at the ripe old age of 18. In Ireland this week, a mother and daughter who were separated by forced adoption more than 50 years ago were reunited. In South Africa, a girl is given back to her foster parents after a failed rescue attempt by her American father. And in Uganda, young mothers are being forced to drug and leave their kids alone while they go out prostituting themselves in order to support them. In Canada, the inquiry into the death of Phoenix Sinclair continues, with the foster father who didn't want to give the kid back to her parents testifying. The union that represents Manitoba's social workers say that their system has been in crisis for years, and that they warned them. And a recent study reveals that Canadian psychiatrists are 4 times more likely to be disciplined for sexual misconduct than are doctors in any other field. In Australia, Tasmania's child protective industry is being accused of abandoning kids after they leave state care. And a couple who pled guilty to harboring a runaway foster kid who claimed she was being sexually abused in her foster home is spared a conviction after the judge rules that their intentions were good. In England, a former foster kid gets a restraining order put against him after repeatedly pestering his former foster parents for money to buy marijuana. Professionals who work with British foster kids are being urged to learn to avoid the use of physical restraints that affect breathing or cause pain on unruly foster kids. A British tribunal reduces the ban for a social worker who was convicted of drunk driving after finding that the investigation took longer than it should have. And the father in a British council adoption ad is exposed as a sex offender. In entertainment news this week, Halle Berry and Gabriel Aubry strike a custody deal after a Thanksgiving Day brawl because neither side wanted to endure an appointed psychiatric test. Modern Family star Ariel Winter's mother denies abuse allegations. And in sports, basketball star Dennis Rodman is ordered to pay $500,000 in back child support. In Arizona this week, a couple pleads not guilty to running a fraudulent child custody mediation service when they weren't qualified to do so. In Florida, the trial of a foster mother who killed a little girl 10 years ago continues, with a former CPS agent admitting that she falsely logged visits for over a year to the girl's foster home. In Indiana, the pastor of a Fort Wayne church is arrested for molesting a foster kid. And an Indiana police chief is going to handle the probe into how his officers handled a case where the adoptive parents duct taped the kids to the bed and deprived them of food and water. In Nevada, the family friend of a foster mother beats the living shit out of a foster kid, causing severe brain injuries that may be permanent. An Ohio woman admits to causing the death of a 3-year-old foster kid by leaving him in a hot car. An adoptive father from Ohio tries for a plea deal after pleading guilty to raping children in his care. And the adoption agency that gave the kids to this guy, as it turns out, sent interns instead of qualified professionals to inspect the home and check up on the kids. In Texas, a foster mother is arrested for injuring a 7-year-old girl in her care. A former Texas CPS agent who licensed foster homes is arrested for sexually abusing a 7-year-old girl. In Florida, it comes out that a medically fragile child died just 12 hours after being ripped from her mother's care and being medically neglected by CPS agents. And in Minnesota, a real mother is jailed after snatching her kid back from a foster home. New York City settles a lawsuit for $9.7 million on behalf of the adoptive kids of an abusive woman named Judith Leakin. The mother of a 16-year-old special needs kid in New York is suing the school and police after her son died while being physically restrained by school staff. In Texas, a father is fighting to get custody of his daughter after his wife put her up for adoption with a Utah family right out from under him. And in Vermont, police are warning the public about several reports of phony CPS agents going around messing with families. In Washington, CPS agents closed the case just hours before her kid is killed. A real mother who snatched her son from a supervised visit in Illinois is busted in Tennessee. The parents of a kid who was strip searched at an Illinois school is suing the assistant principal and the police. And finally, tonight in Wisconsin, a judge orders the father of 9 kids with 6 different mothers not to have any more kids until he pays off his $100,000 child support bill. For these stories and all the latest dirt on the child protective industry, visit www.legallykidnapped.com. And until next week, this is Baby LK, over and out.